We have seen different Python's inbuilt exceptions or the errors like zero division error, name error, value error, or a type error. So all these are provided by Python. But there could be a need in your program where you will have to define your own exception. So for that, we use user-defined exceptions. So the user-defined exceptions are the exceptions which are defined by the software developers themselves. To define your own exception, we use a class keyword provided by Python, then the name of the error, and we derive an exception class which is already provided by Python, then put colon. So this creates a header of the exception definition, and then inside that, with an indentation, we write the processing part of the exception. Let's see an example of this. In our previous example, we had two numbers that we were asking user to enter and then performing a division on it. And we also added value error, name error, zero division error, exceptions in that order, as we also added else and the finally block. Now let's see whether we can add a custom exception and use it. So for that, let's define a class called as string value error, which as per the syntax is going to derive an exception. And right now we do not want to do anything with it. We just use a pass keyword. In this, I have introduced you two more keywords, class and the pass. Pass keyword is used to kind of ignore the block of code when we are not sure right now or we are yet to define that block of code. So the interpreter will see that the block of code is present, but there is no code inside it, but there is a pass keyword. So it will just ignore that instead of giving an error. And the class keyword is used to define a class. Now, what is a class? That is out of scope of this course, but you can Google about it, that what is a class in Python, how to define it. You will get a lot of tutorials. Now let's modify our code a little bit. So instead of expecting it to be converted in an integer here itself, we are going to keep that number 1 as a string. Then we will check if number 1 dot is alpha is alpha is a function on strings provided by Python itself, which allows us to check whether the provided string is an alphabet or not, or has alphabets or not. If it's an alphabet, we want to raise a string value error, and we will provide a message, please provide numbers only. Now let's copy this same thing and paste it below here, where we are going to check for number 2. Now let's see where can we add this. So let's add this over here. So here we can say except string value error as sv, print sv. Now let's see the output of this program. Let's run a program, Python user defined exceptions. Now let's say we put 10 over here. We can see that it properly gives us an error message for the text that we have provided. So here it was expecting us to provide 10 as a number. Instead we provided 10 as a string, and hence it has raised the string value error and went inside a finally block to actually delete the numbers. Now let's run this program again. This time we provide 10 here, and here we say 2. It again raised an error and gave us that to provide proper values for the variables. For the time being, ignore this finally error because that's getting executed. So here it's also clear that although we handle the exceptions in the try except block, the finally block needs to have its own try except if there could be any error.